guys, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Conversations with Ascending Tribe. I'm Alex, creator of Ascending Tribe, and this episode is very, very different. Firstly, because I have a guest co-host with me. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself? Give us a little intro. How did you end up here?
My name is from Alabama, and I ended up here by divine intervention. But once I joined the tribe, felt very at home. Energy was really comforting. So here we are.
Amazing, thank you. So today we have a really interesting guest. I usually have a little bio ready, but I don't. So we're going to free flow with this one. But today we have Isa The Alkmst. So
hello, everybody.
Hey. I don't know if you want to give a little intro, Chris, or whether Isa, you want to just roll with it.
We can just roll with it. I figured the intro would be part of the questions.
Let's just start with where did your path of self-remembrance begin?
So I had an interesting upbringing. I actually was the son of missionaries, and I lived in Jerusalem most of my life, and I was really surrounded by Christianity as well as a respect for other Judeo-Christian religions, because it is the home of Judeo-Christian belief. But as I became a man and had children, I started to have these battles, first being my daughter fighting cancer. And when that happened, it immediately sent me into a test of faith. And when my daughter battled cancer a second time, it completely unanchored me from anything I believed about God or understanding of what I thought I knew, and really had me seeking for truth, because I couldn't imagine a God allowing this to happen twice. Once, much less twice. And it made me want to find the truth. And that's where it began for me.
What sort of topics did you start looking into first?
I think I began a lot with the same things most people do, which was government conspiracy, the Illuminati, the elite agenda, things like that. And then that went into finding out about things like the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Trent, which made me question, religious history. And then that sent me into questioning everything I believed. I thought I knew more, and I thought Christianity was right. I thought I knew better than other Christians. And once I started realizing, I don't really know anything either. And all this is really questionable, because who told me and who told them and who wrote it and how many hands has it been passed down to? And
yeah,
then I started realizing all this is really no foundation at all. And it sent me into a free fall.
I think we've all been there. During my week where I went down a little spiral. I want to touch on your background a little bit more. So you grew up in Palestine, yeah?
Yes.
What was it like growing up there?
A lot of it was amazing. It's kind of like living in the past a little bit. The butcher shops are real butcher shops. You go and there's animals hanging from hooks. The markets are real markets where you go out, and it's open markets where you can find fresh spices and fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. So some of it's beautiful, but it's also war torn, and there's a lot of hate and malice there as well. So it just depends on what perspective you're looking at.
Do you have, I don't want to pry too much, but do you have quite vivid memories of living through the wars in Palestine?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't come here until I was 17, almost 18. So I lived there, all my childhood. So I have a vivid memory, and I still communicate with a lot of my friends there. So
That's good, yeah. Chris, did you want to add anything?
Go around, but yeah. Could you talk more about that upbringing of being a Christian in an Islam dominant state and the challenges you faced on an everyday basis?
so growing up in a country like that, I had one that there was the Islamic side of it, and then you had ruling the Islamic side, you had the Israelis who are predominantly Jewish, or actually all Jewish. And then there's a small 2% of the country that's Christian. And so being that minority, anyways, you're always at a disadvantage. And then me being American or half American and then being brought to this country, I really felt like I was oppressed by my religion. At some point, I remember growing up and feeling like I didn't fit in and there wasn't a lot like me. And being of a different religion there kind of ostracizes you. It's a big deal there. So I felt like I was oppressed by my own religion and put in a country where I was allowed to be oppressed by other religions as well. So I felt like Jesus oppressed me and he allowed Muhammad and the God of the Hebrews to oppress me as well in a country that wasn't my own with no family and no one I knew. And I just felt like it was all, I felt like I had been lied to. You know, at a younger age, I felt like it was great. But when I grew up and realized that all my childhood had been taken and I had lived without family, and now I'm an adult and I'm still disconnected from my family because I didn't grow up with them. I don't have the memories. I don't have the times when my cousins came over and we had sleepovers. I don't have any of that stuff. So uh, I felt like all that was taken from me, or I did at the time, until I realized that it was really preparing me for the mindset I have now.
What's your stance on religion now?
Uh,
After everything you know
so
now?
I feel like it's really the, the Mickey Mouse version of what's real. It's the fairy tale. It makes people feel good, but it's really not the story. It just helps people feel good. People need cause and people need purpose, so they have religion to comfort them and give them purpose and direction. But if you really wanted to know God, God was around long before man was created, and God was creating long before he created. And if you look at the nature of man before, or of God, sorry, before he was any type of father to anyone, before he was any type of, you know, ruler or king or God, he was a scientist, and he created. And I know he was a scientist because the scientists of my world study his creation, and we call it science. And that's really my view. I don't like to look at what man's done to God. I like to look at what God's done for the universe.
That's amazing. Do you have a connection with God?
I have I have what I think is a unique connection, but in fact it's really the first rule of Hermeticism, the all is mind. Uh, God literally created the universe, and my understanding of it is, you know, we know of two ways that man can create, and as above, so below. Man can create with outside materials, and man can create in his mind. And when you ask how did God create the universe, if God was all there is, then he didn't get a foreign substance because he is all that is. And if he separated from himself and created me, would I not still be aware that I am God? Would I diminish in value because I'm separated? Or would I not still say I'm the divine creator? So he didn't separate from himself. And the only other way I know he could have created would be in his mind. And when I realized that he's in a meditation and he's created a universe, I realized that my mind is in the construct of a cosmic infinite mind, which makes my mind the greatest tool I could have. And when I think of God, I know he's thinking of me because I'm in his meditation and he has to think of me for me to exist. And so in that moment, we're thinking of one another. And that's, to me, the greatest connection and the most pure and individualized and unique connection I think I could create, or anyone could hope for.
That is so beautiful. Like for me, for a long time, I really struggled with the word God and, you know, the whole concept of God, due because of the whole indoctrination and conditioning that we go through. Exactly like you were talking about, the whole religion thing. My view on religion has recently been changed, however, just through a friend who has read all of the Holy Scriptures, like the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, you know, the Vedic text. And the way he's put it to me is just like put together, they're all a bit like a Netflix series. So obviously the Vedic text being like the first series, the Torah being the second, the Bible being the third, and so on and so on.
Right.
But in terms of when my concept of God changed, and I change it up a lot, like I use God, creator, source. It was just through a book called, it was like written by Neil Donald Walsh. That was like my first confrontation with the word God. That always triggered me. So like now, knowing everything that you know and doing all the research, and I know that you love reading, how would you describe your concept of God? Because you say he a lot.
Well, my concept of God is he's very hands off. He doesn't. People beg God for so much, and I've paid attention, and I've watched the people around me. I've watched people pray that God saves the world, and blatantly ignore that his text says the world will end. You know, I believe when God set time in motion, he had edited and cropped and put in place, and whatever the case may be. And when he created, he gave you the ability to create, and he gave you the ability to study, and he gave you the ability to act, and he gave you the ability to farm. And when people say, God help me, I'm hungry, and they haven't tried anything at all, they've just sat around, I don't think they understand that the miracle was you're able. The miracle was that you are completely and fully capable of imagining a new way to create, and a new way to exist, and a new way to work, and a new way to farm, and a new way to do anything. So I'm not saying that there's no cosmic force or no spiritual force that won't help. But if you're not going to get up and make an effort, if you're going to ask for healing and continue to eat unhealthy foods, then we're not even on the same, we're not even in the same book, much less being on the same page. We're not talking about the same God. You're talking about a God that you're talking about a scapegoat. You want miracles to look like sparkles in the room and something appear. You don't want what magic really is.
Yeah. And touching on that in terms of us being the creator, like being a creator to a certain point, I guess. What's your view on manifestation? Go on, Chris.
Well, I want to go way back before we got into that.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Because I want to talk about the things that shaped you, because I feel like things that send a lot of people down this path is the fact that they realize they're not like everybody else. So at what point did you realize you weren't like everybody else? Because like you said, you were a Christian in the Islam state. Then you moved here.
Oh, I
so
mean, everything about me told me I wasn't like anybody else.
Right.
I mean, my parents were different from one another. My father was a full-blooded Palestinian. My mother was full-blooded white. So I was like neither of them. And I wanted to be like one. I remember vividly praying that God would make me one or the other, because people would always treat me like I was the other one. Like if I was around Arabs, I wasn't Arab enough. And if I was around white people, I was the Arab cousin or the Arab one. And then when 9/11 happened, I was the one that, got all the terrorist jokes. I was in 7th grade and I got the terrorist jokes. And so, yeah, I mean, being that individual and always like knowing like you're not like everyone else definitely played a role. I always tell people that I was a chameleon. I always just fit in where I could and just tried my best to blend. But it gave me a great gift because now I relate to a lot of people. There's a lot of people that I can sit down and talk to, and we can have a conversation, and we can, meet in the middle, and we have common ground because I've had to fit in so many places. So it's really a blessing.
How did you deal with that? The jokes in 7th grade? Because like for me, you don't really fit in. You don't really know what to say. Like you said, you want a mask, you've been a chameleon, but you never really fit in. The things you might say, people might look at you weird and be like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, so my specific question is like, did that make you want to try harder to fit in with people and prove that you weren't a terrorist that they thought you were? Or did you just kind of begin to fuck everybody else?
No, actually, I learned the power of humor. I learned that no one forgets the funny guy. And I learned that humor breaks all boundaries. So I learned how to be funny. One, that was my first trick. And then that really got me through a lot. And it also helped me cover up how much I was hurting as well. It made me not be a spectacle. So as long as I was funny, people just saw that outward appearance, and it really blocked a lot of eyes. It was like an invisibility spell, really. It kept me from being seen. And so I played behind that my entire life. I've really lived behind comedy my whole life.
How long because I know a lot of people talk about it, but I've never really heard anybody say, how long did the 9/11 jokes or, stereotype, how long did that last for you? Is it still going on?
Oh yeah, I mean, all the way through the Army. I mean, and then especially in the Army, that's just been a part of life since I moved to the States. Because here, we had a conversation before. In the States, everything is very numbed. Everything like death, humor, everything is very numb. There's no out of bounds here. You have to be okay with everything being, up for grabs and everything being made, a joke.
Can we touch on your time in the Army?
Sure.
What was that like?
First
of all, why did you join?
So I joined for financial reasons. I had a family. I had a wife and 3 kids, and I had a very poor means of supporting them. And so I wanted something with insurance and something more stable. So I decided, the military is a good way to get an education and do that. So my idea was I would join the military, get an education, get out, do better in life. So I decided to do that. Joining the military is actually an amazing process. They effectively turn you from a man into a puppy in about 2 weeks and have you begging for approval in 9. And they actually put you in a state of mind where you're willing to do anything to get that approval. So I would say my time in the military was fruitful because it got me part of the way of where I'm at, but it was also very oppressive and very, it's just a long period of hazing, really.
How long were you in the Army for?
Almost 8 years.
Wow, that's quite a long time.
7 and some change.
So just to give people a timeline, you were in the Middle East till what age?
I was in the Middle East from 91, or no, mid 90 to 2006.
So you moved.
And then I graduated in 07 and I joined the military in 2011.
It's because I want people to understand the 3 different areas you went to that's vastly different. You went from the Middle East to Alabama to the Army.
Oh, and they're completely different, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you in the I kind of wanted you to touch on that experience more of growing
Okay.
up in high school in Alabama and all of that.
So growing up in Jerusalem, I mean, it's a completely different world. There is no separation of God and state. There is, you know, on paper on the Israeli side, but on the Arabic side, there's really no separation of God and state. If you break laws of Islam, it's not uncommon for you to be killed and it's swept under the rug. And you know, so it's a very oppressive. You live in fear all the time because it's a war happening, like a real war. And then on top of that, the regular everyday life is so different. Like one of my first memories in Jerusalem, I was like 3 or 4 and maybe younger. Our neighbor had a lamb and it was Ramadan and the lamb had been out there for weeks. But I remember that morning I woke up and my mom said, come look at the lamb. And I looked out the window and as I was getting up to the window, the neighbor was slitting its throat. And it was the meal for that night. They had raised it all through Ramadan, and then the final night, Eid al-Fitr, they ate it. So you know, it was a whole different world. And then it was bad enough that a lot of the things were already very, very, very traumatizing anyways. You don't really need unkindness to go on top of, you know, on top of it. But there's just, people are cruel, man. People are sad because they're oppressed and they can't help but be, you know, the people they are. They can't help but treat you worse than they're being treated.
Did you see it a lot of I don't know if I want to ask this question though.
Ask it. I will answer it.
Face, like a lot of corruption within the army.
Oh, absolutely. You know, for a long time, I had a real problem with like Jews in general, because I felt like they were all mean. I felt like they were all bad people. The Israeli soldiers are the worst. It's like they're trained to be hateful, and they instigate 90% of the, you know, the friction. And then when it hits CNN or the news, it's the other way around, a terrorist attack. They don't tell you that they just got through. I literally watched the Israeli soldiers slap a woman and beat her while she was trying to take her groceries across a checkpoint. And then while I'm still waiting at the checkpoint, the line is hours long. I'm 2 hours later or so, her sons came back and killed one of the soldiers, and they ended up, you know, shooting and all this stuff, and they, you know, sent us all home. Well, later that night on CNN, it was a terrorist attack. And I stopped putting my faith in the media then. I knew it was all fake because I had seen the event and I had seen them beat the woman and knock her groceries out in her street. And for someone to leave the West Bank and go across the border when they're a West Bank resident is not an easy task. So it was probably something that took planning and time for her to get across to get those groceries, and then for them to be wasted in the street was probably devastating for that family.
It's funny because my cousin had gave me that same story, like in the early 2000s. He was like, you know, you hear the terrorist attack, but you don't hear that they spent the whole weekend raping and pillaging a village that caused the terrorist attack, you know. But I'm glad you told that story because it seems like, you know, you illustrating why you didn't have complete faith in religion. Now you're illustrating why you don't have complete faith in the government, politics, and
And, and really, you know, it's funny you say that, because when I joined the U.S. military, I came from that, and I thought I was joining the good guys. Like, I honestly, in my head, I was thinking, oh, this country's way better. Like, they wouldn't do that here. This is the land of the free. Like, that's how naive I was. I was coming from that country because, in my perspective, like, America was this grand, like, place. I'd never lived here. So when I thought I was going to move here, this was going to be like the best. Anytime I had ever visited in the summers, it was like coming to Disney World. This was exciting for me. I came here, all my family was excited to see me. We would do fun stuff. They would take me to Six Flags. I thought this was a great place. But then when I joined the military, at first I thought that. And then when I got to basic training, one of the drill sergeants told this story about all these war crimes he had done. And he was saying them so proudly. And that was my first like red flag. Like, wait a minute. What do you mean you threw a guy off a building? That's not something we do. That's not in training. They don't teach you to do that. And so at first I was like, okay, that was horrible, but maybe he was just a bad guy. But then when they sent me over there and I realized how much I had done to receive that pat on the back, because they had effectively turned me into a puppy, like I said, and they had me begging for this approval, that when I had gone as far as I had gone, you know, overseas, and realized like they gave me the pat on the back and this little piece of metal, but I am effectively a guy that is like acting in a hateful manner towards people that look just like me. And I'm looking at them like they're suspicious, and they're more likely to be my cousin than they are to be, you know, anything else. Like it started making me feel like this is not right. And then I started getting awards, and I was confused. I'm like, I'm getting awards, but I don't feel good. Like, this doesn't make me feel accomplished. This makes me feel horrible. And that was another internal conflict. I mean, my path to where I am now is just stepping stone of conflict after conflict after conflict. It's none of it is. And when I say conflict, I mean internal conflicts that where I had to deal with, why am I me? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel horrible? But everyone around me is congratulating me and saying what a good job I did. And I'm looking at like, are you sure? Because this looks bad.
I
So
like
yeah,
that because like I said, people wonder why people get to a certain point. You can't understand after that story. I don't know really what you're looking for, because, you know what I'm saying, in detail you explain why you don't trust the system as it is with government. In detail you just explain why you don't trust religion as it is. So, you know, I just wanted to get that out there before you even went into more depth. I forgot what Alex was asking, but it was a good question. But I just wanted to make sure people understand, like, this is somebody who's seen both sides of a war in different areas. You know what I'm saying?
Want to know if you do you believe in soul contracts, so that you choose the life before you come here?
Great question.
How do you feel?
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't really delved into that as far as I believe that we live in cycles, and that honestly, I'm one of the people that believes that at some point I was you, and at some point you were me, and the reason that we should do good to others is because in doing good to others, you're really doing good to yourself, because at some point I was the other person. And what I mean by that is it's only one consciousness, and God created all these experiences, and as I die, he just sends me back as, like, I might die this time and come back as a Chinese woman in the, you know, early 500s or whatever. I don't know. I don't think time, we think of time linear, but I think of it as completed. Time is not moving at all. Time is a compilation of events, and they're all very current and very present, and they're just, I'm only experiencing a line of events that are correlated, but I could experience other events that are happening right now as well that aren't in my line of life or my lifeline. If that makes sense.
That is such an interesting
concept. Yeah, could you explain to people what a soul contract is, Alex? And then
I wasn't even familiar with a soul contract.
Oh, okay. So basically, a soul contract is before you come here, before you choose to incarnate here, because we have a choice of coming here. You basically choose the clothes you wear, and when I say clothes, I mean i.e. your body, your avatar. So what your avatar looks like, who your parents are going to be, what kind of life you're going to have, what is the mission that you're coming here for, what are the lessons that you're coming here for, and what are the challenges that you want to face, who are the people that you're going to be coming across, meeting, what do they mean. So it's kind of like a collective soul contract, I suppose, but in some way there is like obviously individual it's an
mission.
Yeah, because you have your individual mission and your individual lessons and challenges there. I just wanted to know if that's something that you...
No, it kind of it conflicts a little with what I believe. I
don't think it actually does conflict in what you believe, though.
Maybe not. But I vividly have thought to myself before, like, I remember sitting down going, if this, like, I remember saying, if God has this thing where I am either going to believe, I feel like I was born at the biggest disadvantage, and not me, everyone. I feel like as humans, we're born at this huge disadvantage. And the disadvantage is that we have an infinite creator who is like grossly inconceivable. And we have the narrowest slot of vision. Like, we can't even see the spectrum of frequency that's available to us that we know exists. Like, we can only see like 6% of the spectrum that we know is available right here in front of us, much less have the brain to perceive an infinite God.
Yeah.
And then the way religion or Christian religion is taught is, if I don't manage to somehow overcome that obstacle and have unwavering faith in this creator and believe in his son, who again I have very little proof of, and if I don't accomplish this almost impossible task, yet he created me with the inability to do said task, I will go to hell. And I'm like, why? You messed up. Like, I didn't do this. This was not my idea. I opt out. Like, if you ask me, hey, do you want to go do this impossible task? No, like, leave me where I'm at. I would rather not be made. Keep me in the spiritual world before creation. I don't want to do this. That would be my option. Like, that's what I would choose. But since I'm here, I'm I would like to believe that I wouldn't have opted in to do this. Because this is like really painful. This is really painful. This
I know, I
sucks.
feel it. It does. I relate.
Yeah, some people, like I said, you have a story, you have a lot of things. I can't wait for you to do your talk on alchemy, but that is part of the soul contract. Some people choose to come here. Some people are sent here. You know, it's voluntary. It depends on the mission.
I would like to believe that. I would like to believe that God made me do it. And
well, yeah, and to her point, if you ain't fulfilled your contract, you have to keep coming back to fulfill contract.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If you are not your mission.
I believe that. I mean, I believe that they're so I believe, like, I was telling, I think it was Fundy in the Discord. I was telling him that like the book The Alchemist, it had very little to do about alchemy, but
right.
It had like one point that I really liked. It had the point that every person's only mission in life or only purpose is to find their personal legend. And that really spoke to me, because your personal legend, you know, the word legend is interchangeable with story or whatever, but I like to use the word legend and keep it like the book, because that's amazing. Like the legend of granddad that your grandkids tell, or it could be the legend of, you know, Alex, the creator of the Ascending Tribe, millions of followers who believe in Alex's, you know, understanding of the way things are, or
It's not what I'm trying
whatever. My point is, I know that's not believers in the community that Alex created. My point is that it's whatever the legend is, whatever you choose to make it, somebody will tell the story. And as long as you're happy with who's telling the story and what the story is, that's all that matters. The alchemy is not to change the world. It's to change your perception of your reality. It's not to, like, you're not going to save humanity. I mean, there may be somebody with that legend, but the average human can only affect their personal bubble and their personal reality, and hope that work goes right. And if you can focus on that and stop trying to worry about Donald Trump, they're trying to get you to worry about Donald Trump. Don't worry about Donald Trump. He doesn't matter. Like, what really matters is how are we going to get through today, and how can I improve my life and the lives of those around me? How can I use the law of multiplication to increase and cause abundance in my home and the homes of the ones I love? That's what we want to do. That's the change I want to affect.
That actually leads me on to like manifestation. But before I talk about that, you just reminded me of something. So basically, we're touching on the whole Trump thing and media and how they get in your head. And I was watching a scary film yesterday, which I don't usually do. It was like set in the Victorian times. And then I just fancied like watching a scary film. I thought, I haven't seen one in ages. Let me see if this affects me. And actually, to be honest, I turned it off halfway through. I get so bored. I can't watch films anymore. I get really, really bored.
Right.
But I was trying to watch this film. And it was set in the Victorian days. And like, it's all like really scary and like got ghosts and da 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 da. And then I started thinking like, but they don't have TV in Victorian days. So, because I was sitting there watching this film thinking like, he is so brave. He's going into that house that looks so creepy, and he's staying in the room that looks so creepy. Like, a normal person wouldn't do that, because they would be like, that's a fucking creepy house. But he went in there and was like just chilling in there, and I was like, oh, it's because they don't have TV, so they're not conditioned. So they don't think. I mean, this is like, maybe I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I don't smoke, so this is just like my normal train of thought. But like, I just went down like this little rabbit hole in my head of like, oh well, he's not creeped out because that's normal for him. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
Like lighting was hard to come by back then anyway. So
I would be scared going into that house, but is it because I'm scared because I've been conditioned by scary films on the TV? And I've been conditioned by all this fear on the TV and all the stuff around me.
Alex, that's amazing. Not only are you conditioned to fear, but everything you think, everything you say, everything you do has been conditioned. Everything anyone does is conditioned. Like everything. They wanted you to be conditioned. They wanted you to lose your power. They wanted you to forget what was important. That's why they took, like, for example, they took Yah out of the Bible. Like, they took language away from people. They took all the heavy vibrating languages and they gave you English because it's soft. Yeah. It gives you no vibration in your voice. They muted everything. Like, everything is conditioned. Everything. I am a firm believer that if it is not an act of God, it was conspired.
Yeah.
And so I believe everything's a conspiracy.
We got to do a talk on language. I didn't even know.
Yes, I love that topic. Yeah, I'm all about that.
But hold on, before we get back into the magic, I want to finish the story because then you can get into the stuff we talking about, the good stuff. Well, but his journey, because I want you to talk about how it ended in the army, because that's what really set you on this path, right? The end and when you got home and what you had to deal with, you know what I'm saying?
So ending the army was actually very magical for me. I didn't realize it at the time, but later I realized. I remember like having a breaking point, and I was just at a place where I was tired. I was trying to get promoted. I remember like I had spent like a year in like effort, like full 100% effort to get promoted, and I was about to get promoted. And I just had this breaking point, realizing I was running in circles for this status, and realized I was about to try to push something that was basically a commitment for 12 more years of the same oppression. And I was realizing that I was trying and making an effort to commit to oppression. Like that's, and then I was like, I started realizing like I'm sick. Like I'm really sick. I'm trying, I'm begging for this oppression. And I remember having this moment on a friend of mine's porch, and me and him both had arrived at this point. We were just like, I want out. I want to go home. I'm done. I'm tired. This is, it's just too much. And the next month I got sent to the field, which is like a army camping trip where you go on like training missions, and they keep you in high stress. They like do ambushes at night while you're sleeping, and they just keep you on your toes at all times. Everything you're doing, they'll send you on a mission, and when you're halfway there, they'll ambush you, and just you're always on edge. And they keep you in the field for like a month or a month and a half. And they had sent me to the field for a month, and it was like 3 weeks in. And I was only supposed to be there for 3 days. So the commander had told me to pack for 3 days, and I packed for 3 days. And when we got there, he was like, yeah, well, I got to keep you here. And I was like, you told me to pack for 3 days. And he was like, well, we sent a packing list home, so you should have followed that. And I was like, but I don't have any more underwear. Like, what do you mean? Like, and so he kept me out there for 3 weeks, and don't ask me how. Like, it was disgusting. So I was waking up at 1 a.m. and like sneaking behind the water trucks and bathing butt naked in a field so I could clean myself, because I had to wear the same stuff every day. And so I was just mentally exhausted, and I had lost it. And like the third weekend, somebody attacked us, and we had this little ambush. And I remember I just snapped, and I chased this guy down, and the exercise was over. We had beat them. They were all defeated, but he, for some reason, wouldn't die during the exercise. And so I just saw red. I was exhausted, and I was just done with it. So I chased this man down, and my friends had caught him. He was done. He was like giving me like, okay, guys, you did great. But I wasn't finished. I'm still running. And I get to him, and he's like telling him what a good job they did. And I like kick him in the shoulder and knock him over, and stuck my rifle to his head and pulled the trigger. I had a blank round in it, and I ended up blowing his eardrum out. So they sent me to a psych eval, which they discovered that I had a breaking point, and that at that breaking point, I can't tell the difference between reality and what's in my head. But I mean, that's what they want you to do. That's what they train you to do. Just they want you to do it with other people. They don't want you to do it with them. So when they realized that I was just at a point where I was sick of all of it, and that I was a danger to anyone who was causing me this lack of peace, they decided that I was no longer useful. So they gave me a retirement, and they sent me home, and they make sure I'm good.
How do you feel now since then? Do you feel this?
I feel like they took a lot of stuff from me, but I feel like in the long run I won.
Yeah.
Because that's true healing. You can, because trauma is only meant to shape you into what you're supposed to become. And it's funny, it's interesting that you said they seen that you reached a breaking point to where you couldn't tell reality from the fake. It's almost as if you still, like say, so it is natural. You find out that you're going through things naturally and spiritually at the same time. And like you said, you were already trying to figure out, is this is this war real? Is religion real? Then literally you get into a situation where they indoctrinated you so much through training that you can't tell what's real in this reality, for real. So it's an interesting, in my opinion, breaking point. That was the last thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, when I got there and I just realized, you know, we were sending mass amounts of technology to a country where people live in mud huts.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, how bad can they be? They can't even fly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these people can't even get to America, much less be an enemy that we need to be here for.
Yeah, 'cause my bigger point is this: it's funny to me that I realize, like, people like us, it seems like you always been struggling. What's real and what's fake? You get my point?
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, but what I was just saying, like, that was just one
Mm-hmm.
personal experience, but that goes across the board. Like, that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there is no real and fake. It's all perception. It's all perception.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But my bad. You can go ahead, Alex. I don't know if you had-
No, that's
you can
fine.
add.
It has actually sparked like so many more questions for me, but I just want to touch on your concept of manifestation, because you talk a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. Yeah, before we get to that, he got one more thing. Because in that, you know what I'm about to tell you to go and tell her, because that's when I feel like you truly manifested what's going on
Which one?
now. Your major, because I think she asked it earlier, what's your major breaking point? But I already know because I know your story. But once you got out the
Which
army
one?
and you had to go with your daughter.
Oh no, well, my daughter's cancer. I touched on that. That was that was during the army. That was all happening while I was in the army, man.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't even
Yeah,
realize that.
I did not.
yeah. She got sick my second year in the army,
Mm-hmm.
or my first year in the army, and she beat cancer. And then while I was in Afghanistan, she got sick again, and they sent me back from Afghanistan 2 weeks early because I found out like my last month there. So they sent me back a couple weeks early before the rest of my unit, and I went back for her treatment. That all happened while I was in the army, and that was a huge breaking point for me. I mean, I was in a hotel room. So the first time she had gotten cancer, everybody around me kept saying, all is well. God says all is well. God wants you to know all is well. And statements like all is well fit in the category with God bless you and, you know, like God is good. All those, I call those statements Christianese, and they're blanket statements that are kind of like feel good statements that cover any and everything. It doesn't matter what you say them to. They're supposed to make you feel good. But they have no substance whatsoever. So everybody kept saying this, but I believed it, and I kept holding on to that. God, you know, God said, all is well, all is well, all is good. I was a little upset that it was happening anyway. My daughter was sick because I was watching an innocent, you know, 3 or 4 year old go through that. And so I was already upset that she was going through that, but she beat it. And then I was like, okay, God was faithful. He said, all is good and all is good. Then while I was deployed and it happened again, I kind of just lost it. You know, I was like, okay, you're playing with me, God, and I'm sick of it. And we're not going to be doing this anymore. So I remember when I was at the hospital and I was trying to be faithful. The hospital in Las Vegas, which is where she was, couldn't handle it. So they ended up sending a nationwide call for a surgeon. And there was only one surgeon that said that they think they could handle the tumor. So he was in Texas. So they sent us to Houston, to Texas Children's. And when we got there, it took them like 2 months to get us there. When we got there, the tumor had tripled in size. And he was like, yeah, I can't do anything now. So she has 2 months to live. And he was like, I'm going to give her pain meds, and we're just going to let her pass in peace. And when he said that, I was like, what? Are you crazy? I'm about to come across this table and kill you. I'm about to kill you right now if you don't say something else. And so, yeah, he sent me home with that. And, like, I got to the hotel room that night, and, like, I was like, so now what? And I just vividly remember, like, I was losing it. And I looked up at the ceiling, and I was like, God, who the fuck are you? You're terrible. You're a horrible father. I would never let this happen. I would never in my life let this happen to my child. You suck. I'm a good dad. You're a terrible dad. And I remember just like I lost it. And I like almost knocked myself out. I screamed out and I banged my head on the floor at the hotel, and I didn't realize under the carpet was concrete, and like almost knocked myself out. But yeah, I just had this huge moment of like anger and instant, you know, karma from being unable to control myself. And yeah, it jarred something loose, and from there all I wanted to do was, you know, find the truth. I wanted to know what was real. I knew that the God of the Bible might be real, but the teachings of the church are big falsehood.
How is your daughter
And
now?
she's amazing, actually. She's in fact, she just got home from school.
So she did get better.
Oh yeah, she's a champ.
Oh.
She's good. She is good to go. I mean, she's missing a couple ribs and she's scarred up, but she is a champ. Like she is, you wouldn't even know. Like if you walk through my house, she's playing with everyone else the same. She runs around the neighborhood. She rides her bike. She's the same as everyone else. She has one lung and she's missing 3 ribs, but you would never know.
Wow. Do you ever have fear still that it might come back? Or is it not
no,
think about?
no. I you know what I figured out? I figured out that my ability or her ability to manifest a better future is a lot more powerful than fearing. If you fear and you fear a specific thing, you literally minimize all your opportunities to that one thing. You are denying every other opportunity and saying, this is what's going to happen, and I'm already fearing it. And if you believe in Joe Dispenza, then you know fearing something is having the emotion of it already happening. And having the emotion of something already happening literally makes it real. And I don't want to do that. So we don't even talk about it. Like it's not even a thing in our house. She's good, and we live life like she's good. We don't even treat her, you know, we don't treat her like she's our daughter who beat cancer. You know, she's subject to all the rules, and she is subject to all the requirements. She has to meet the same standards, and she does. She excels. In fact, she's in the lead most of the time.
That is amazing to hear. So amazing. The reason why I wanted to touch on manifestation is because your name is Isa the Alchemist.
I am.
So alchemy ties in with manifestation, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You are
absolutely
creating, changing.
It's all about changing. So the beautiful thing, I mean, alchemy, I chose alchemy or alchemist, honestly, because it ties the most to my heritage. Alchemy ties very closely to the Arabic heritage and the Arabic history. But really the physical alchemy is not where the magic is. That's fun. It's all in the spiritual alchemy. It's all in changing your perception. And seeing the positives, because I have literally watched my life change from an army or like a war growing up to a war as an adult where I was in front of the gun, and then I was behind the gun, and then now I'm free of all that. And I've watched my life change from this to this to this to now what it is. And it's all only changed because of the perceptions. It didn't take any wizardry. You know, it was all perception, and it was all in the way you think and the way if you're willing to believe that life's in your favor, then it will be in your favor.
I find it very interesting that you've gone from a very violent background, very, very violent from a childhood, violent as you're getting older, you, like you were saying, in front of the gun, behind the gun, and now you found a very peaceful path. What are the kinds of rituals or daily rituals that you have to keep yourself in that space?
So I was telling Chris earlier, like I was really surprised that you were surprised at an hour of meditation, because
I'm
that's
not the best at
No, I
meditating.
was,
Seriously.
yeah, I played it off when you told me.
I did not realize that that was as big a deal as you, because I figured everyone did an hour of meditation. I was started, the person that introduced me to meditation introduced me to an initial 45-minute guided meditation. And when I started guided meditations, 45-minute I felt like was the minimum, and I felt like if I did less, I didn't accomplish anything. So, and I usually allot myself an hour of or 2 hours of meditation time. Now, I don't meditate the whole 2 hours,
Yeah.
but that gives me time to prepare myself, to sit down, to relax, to get where I'm calm and get into a point where I'm in the void. Like I like to say, the void is when I step away from my face.
Yeah, I think the problem with me is that like I don't have a lot of time during the week. You know, I was saying to you earlier,
Right.
I really have to allocate time and really focus on time management. And we have spoken about time being an illusion and not even being a real thing anyway. Obviously, it does exist in this matrix of reality, but like just because of my job.
Hermes says
Basically,
Hermes says time is divine, and it's the destruction of man. Time is the destruction of man.
yeah, and I can really relate to that. So it's like come the weekend for me, I'm still buzzing in that kind of can't switch off because I'm always on, like Monday to Friday, I'm always on, always on. So my part of my routine is like working out in the morning, and then I allocate like 10 to 15 minutes meditation afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
just to quiet my mind and realign myself. I found like a really, really nice chakra meditation that I told you earlier, like it's a new one that I've been trying, and for me it's kind of really working at the moment to focus on aligning my chakras, and I have really noticed quite a difference. It's funny because I have you ever done or heard of Vipassana meditation? Like
No.
you basically go away, it's like silent meditation, and you go away for like 10 days to like a monastery or a specific Vipassana retreat. And
I would love this. This sounds amazing.
yeah, seriously, I was gonna try it. And then a friend of mine was actually like, you may struggle, Alex, because it's not as easy as you think, because you do about like 10, 15 minutes a day. You're basically in meditation for 10 days. They feed
It's,
you,
Yeah.
you don't talk to anyone, you have no eye contact, you're not allowed to bring a book, you're not allowed to bring a pen and paper.
sound
Just
like
10
heaven.
days of meditate. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. No, it's funny though.
They must have it in the US. I'll send it to
Oh,
you.
So
sure.
I love the idea of no speaking. There's so many times during the day that we just say things just to get through an interaction, just to cut,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, just get out of my face. I'll just say whatever it is that I have to say for this to be over. And really, our words are so precious that we should have more control and more discipline in how we use them. But we'll just use them so frivolously in anything. And
That's the
I
best
believe
all
in
day.
discipline. I would love to be in a condition where I could be disciplined, and I would, be forced to be disciplined, like you were talking about.
Do you find it easier to be disciplined because you were in the army though?
No, I find it easier to be disciplined when it comes to speaking because I had to make an effort to relate to begin with.
I feel like words and language are a miscommunication. I feel true communication, I feel, is feeling your emotion.
Oh, we're
This
gonna
is
talk
true.
about language. We're gonna talk about how they fucked that up. For sure. Not here, but
That
that's a whole talk. You said something interesting. Man, I want to go back to when you asked him something, which I can't think of what it
What was
was.
it about that we're talking about?
Oh, actually, I did want you to define specifically what alchemy means to you. Like, what would be your specific definition? And
okay?
it was something else to do with that, but just you can just do that while I think about the other
Yeah,
question.
like I actually want to know, in your words, how you would explain spiritual alchemy, Like, what does that mean to someone who doesn't understand, who can only think in terms of physical alchemy?
There you
Okay.
go.
So physical alchemy is, you know, the classic turning lead into gold, or turning, you know, refining anything into its best form. Uh, which is, I mean, it's a great science. It's a great, you know, practice. You know, if you're looking to make products and you want the best of them, then it's a great science to use. But spiritual alchemy is shadow work for the most part. It's where you go inside and you find out why you tick, and you figure out if there's a more effective way to tick, and if there's a more effective perspective to see from, and if there's a more effective way to interact, and if there's a way you can minimize effort in areas. It's just turning you into the best version of you. So instead of me trying to take a metal and work it and make a metal my opus and cause that to be refined down to its purest form, I would take myself as the metal and I would refine myself to my purest form through the process of what alchemy would call calcination, which is the removing of impurities.
How
Can I
do
get my definition?
I want to know, like, I want to know exactly, like, you know, what are the, like, how do you actually do that? What does it mean?
To be honest, that really looks like a lot of meditation. That looks like a lot of finding where your friction is. You have to know you. You have to say, why do I have trouble in this area? And you can't ask, why do I have trouble in this area because this area is a problem. You have to say, why am I the problem in this area? Because I should be able to fit in all these areas, because that person fits and that person fits, and they're all able to be very malleable and very able to walk through that door and not overreact. But for some reason, when I walk through that door, I have a problem. So I must be the problem. So you have to, one, be willing to be the work. And then you have to take yourself and analyze where your fault is. And you have to be willing to call it a fault. And you have to be willing to remove it. And sometimes that's painful and can't be done. And sometimes that's as simple as learning that there's a difference between I and me. And I knows best.
That is so interesting. Do you think it's possible to truly know yourself? Because I was thinking today that I have a lot of blind spots. I don't see, you know, I have a perception of myself. Maybe I'm incorrect.
Right. A lot of times you are blind to yourself. A lot of times you have to see other people. Sometimes, like, that's the thing about what I was telling you about living all these realities or all these lifetimes. And at some point I was you and you were me. You have to look through other people's eyes sometimes. Sometimes you have to say, I know this person's not crazy, but for some reason, every time I touch on this subject, they feel offended. And normally this person isn't crazy. So I have to be willing to say, is it something I'm doing? And I have to be willing to ask. And you're right, a lot of times we're blinded. You have to ask, or you have to listen, because if the person communicates, you can't be the person that says, no, I'm good. You have to be willing to take the criticism.
Have you had any of out-of-body experiences during your meditation?
I have not. I have had deep inner body experiences.
What do you experience? Because you meditate for so long. What are your experience? Anything supernatural or out of the ordinary?
So a lot of times my experiences, so what I love most about my meditations is the quiet, the void. I love that in my home they're respected. So when I go into these meditations, the first thing I'm looking for is I'm looking for the feeling of like my face being here and me inside stepping backwards. Once I step backwards and my face stays in place and I can move back, then I know I'm in a position to be, you know, to put things in the ether. Usually when that happens, I look down. I look because I started my meditations through Joe Dispenza methodology, and his methodology is to find your center first. So I always look down to my center, and I feel myself like float down my spine. I become like this little human inside my body, and I float down my spine, and I look at, like, I'm like turned around looking at my back, and it's just this void. And when I get in this void, the first thing I started, like, if I want to put things in the ether, the first thing I'll do is, like, the day prior or hours prior, I'll create an intention. The intention I'll write down on paper, and I'll assign it a letter. And so then once I've assigned this entire intention a letter, so my last intention was the letter I. And the letter I included job specifications, as well as interactions with friends and family. It included about 6 feelings of 6 emotions I would feel based on this new life. And so when I reached the void, I placed that letter I in the void. And so the way I look at that is, the letter I, once it goes into the ether literally, or in reality where we live, a void is created, or a black hole is created, where I'm feeling an emotion because I'm in this place of meditation, and I'm feeling the emotion of it happening before it happens. So I'm creating this void because the ether's looking and saying, he's having an emotion that says he's happy for being wealthy. I'm just going to say wealthy because that's most people's dream. He has this emotion of happiness for his new wealth, but he doesn't have new wealth. Where's the new wealth? Let me place the new wealth there, because that's missing. So that's the way the ether looks at it. It looks at it like, here's all these parts, but all this is happening around this one thing that is not present. Let me put it there. It's not present. It's supposed to be there. And the ether looks at it as a void and has to fill it. And I was explaining to Chris actually earlier today, things that are created in the ether filter down to the physical, because we filter down to the physical. The ether is up. A lot of times as human, this is how twisted the perception is. We think if you break a rock down into dust, eventually it'll break down into a particle small enough, it'll be air. But really what happens is, things that are as thin as air and as light as photons filter down into the physical. We were at once spirit and we became human. It's not the other way around. And so if we place things in the ether or spirit dimension, they will filter down into the physical. And that's how I do it.
Is that also your method for manifestation?
It is. I believe it is. I also have a thing called a gatekeeper. Are you familiar with gatekeepers?
No.
So I have an astral temple. Like in my meditations, I can go to this other location that's just in my head. I created it. And when I walk in the door, there's a man that sits by the door. And he plays the role of, I'm careful saying this because I don't like to say that I do God work. But he plays the role of Heka, and being that he is the power that flows through the gods. And when I walk in, I greet him. I go in, I perform my meditation, I work on whatever work I'm working on in myself. And then when I leave my manifestations in his hands, and I say, hey, I want this in the ether. And so he's my gatekeeper when I'm in my astral temple.
Chris, I feel like you have a question to ask.
Hit me, Chris.
Oh no, I was gonna tell him you ain't gotta share your spell if you don't want to in detail. But I did want to go back to a little bit back, because she asked alchemy.
Okay.
What is your definition of alchemy, Alex? Because I want to see something.
My definition.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like pretty similar to what Isa was saying. You know, on a physical level, I knew about turning lead into gold. So I know on that physical level. In the spiritual level, my interpretation of, oh, you moved. My interpretation of spiritual alchemy is, I suppose, connecting to your higher self, but refining yourself. Like,
right.
the best version, I suppose, in the most simplest term I can put it.
That's
But
what I like.
doing the
Yeah.
inner work to get there is
Right.
my interpretation of it.
Essentially, all y'all said, because my point was, I know you was gonna keep saying it's a couple of words that encapsulate alchemy: transform, transmute, change.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how I define it.
Combined.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, combining opposites. It wants you to combine the male and female aspects of everything to achieve balance. It's all about achieving balance.
Yeah.
And my understanding of God and the Trinity was the initial spark, knowledge and wisdom, which the initial spark is universal. It's the catalyst. And then you have knowledge, which is very male, just raw information. And then you have understanding, which is very female and nurturing. So when you have those two, and with the spark, that is God. That's the equation of what makes God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh,
sorry, go on.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just gonna say, like I said, like alchemy is just transforming or transmuting any situation, natural or spiritual.
And
working out is alchemy. You transmuting and then transforming your body. Meditation is alchemy. You transforming and transmuting your mind, the thoughts that come in your mind. Like we talked about before we got on this interview, and I just really want to make this point because transmuting anger. Like people tell you don't, to wish anger away. And I was explaining to Isa, anger, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful emotions to transform. And it actually, when you concentrate on it and think about what you want to manifest when you're angry, and you go into meditation angry, and you're just like, I really want peace. Which, like you said, it's combined into opposites. You're using anger to bring about peace. So when I would go into my meditation, I'd be like, I'm gonna use this anger because I want some peace, and you'll feel yourself not even too long in there feeling peace. Or if you want a job, or you want understanding about something, whatever I think about when I get angry, that's what I do, and it's still transmitting lead into gold. Because what are you? Nothing but carbon. You're trying to transmute or transform into either gold or a diamond body or a rainbow body, whatever you want to call it. So it's still, and you are earth, you are the metal. So alchemy is still the same thing naturally that it is spiritually. You still transmuting lead into something. But I just want to get everybody a definition and show everybody that we was all saying the same thing at the end of the day. It's transforming something from something else into what you wanted to become. At least that's my definition, I feel like.
Oh, definitely. I think it's really important to make that very clear, especially for a lot of people that don't understand the concept.
Absolutely. It's surprising that it's not as magical as everyone would think. Everyone is expecting, like I said before, they're expecting these sparkles out of thin air and something like, and a lot of that happened because of, again, the oppression of the Catholic Church. They put medicine and anything that wasn't Christian into the category of magic and witches and paganism, and a lot of it's just everyday exercises that should be incorporated into your life. It's just understanding how things work so you can do them in a better way. It's just knowing how to heal yourself without taking a drug that makes you also lose your toes or some side effect. It's just being healthy, mind, body, and spirit. And they want you to not be healthy. They want you to be sick, because as long as you're sick, you have to buy the not cure, but the
suppressant.
I don't even know. The suppressant. There you go. That's a great word.
I like that. Talking about that because I tell people, I get on the analogy of Thor as far as religion and witchcraft, and why they don't want you to do alchemy, witchcraft, sorcery, whatever you want to call it. It's like you could kill Thor, then he's no good to you. Or you could tell Thor that his hammer is evil. That way he never go pick up the hammer. So now you have control of Thor. Your hammer is alchemy, your hammer is witchcraft, your hammer is meditation. But you're afraid to pick up your own hammer. You just
Right.
used to being a slave. You feel me? So I
You
like
know
that you
that's
actually talked about that. Yeah.
I think
that's
part
what they
of it, I was just going to say, I
say.
think part of it is because a lot of people don't know their power. They're not familiar with it.
Which I attribute to a lot of monotheistic religions. They took everything. Like when I said the language, like that's one of the things. But they took everything. They took the history. They took understanding. They took it all, and they
Mm-hmm.
gave you a whole nother narrative. I mean, I was talking to Chris today, and he said something that I was talking about a few weeks ago, which is a crazy synchronicity. He said, "What if Hitler?" Or he was saying they don't want you to know Hitler might have been the good guy, and I was thinking like the same thing. What if Hitler was the good guy? Not saying that he was. He might not have been, and I don't intend to offend
No,
anyone by saying that. I'm just saying I have to take their word for it. I never met Hitler, nor do I know why he did what he did. He never told me why he did what he did. I just have to believe that he was a bad guy that did some bad things, and the great, wise Uncle Sam needed to go over there and bomb some stuff to fix it. But this guy like was incredible. He commanded like legions of people, and somehow told them that they were the perfect, race, and they still followed him, and he wasn't part of the perfect race. Like, he was an incredible leader.
that's the point.
So
I love that you did all that, because that's what I tell people at the end of the day, and that's true alchemy. It ain't the messenger, it's the message. What did I learn about Hitler? Number one, salesman, crazy charisma.
Can I
He
add
can get
something?
his point across.
Can I add something in that? I think we also need to bear in mind that these, I completely understand what you're saying, but I feel that politicians and these kind of leaders aren't really leaders because they have strings attached to them.
There you go.
So
Agenda.
I don't think they're actually a very good example. However, I completely understand the example that you were trying to.
my only point is I have to take history at face value. I
Yes.
don't know any more
Yes.
than the next person. I just have to accept, and it just never sat easy with me. Not that any of that was true in the least. Everything I said was all hypothetical.
But that's what we're saying. Like, yeah, you doing the same thing with Hitler that you did with religion. And
yeah, with anything, you have to question, like,
you got to question it all.
From both sides.
And the religion will tell you that you're wrong for questioning, but the book will tell you, enter my courts and boldly ask. And so there's that, to me in itself says I shouldn't be in this building because you guys aren't even following this book. I was supposed to be able to enter and boldly ask, and you guys are making me feel like I'm a devil worshiper because I don't know, and I'm incapable of knowing. Like, I'm doing exactly what I was built to do, not know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we know. It's just a matter of bringing out what we found out later that we knew.
Remembering.
There you go. Like when you say remembering, right?
But no, yeah. I hate using the word awakening.
I like.
When do we truly awaken anyway? Like.
Do you hate it because everybody uses it, or do you truly just hate the way
that might be
remembrance sounds better, and yeah, everybody use wake, woke.
Like when people woke, I can't stand the whole woke thing. It cringes me out. Because I tend to find is that the people that use woke are the ones that actually aren't even woke anyway.
No, you're right. And then the ones that, like, there's there's levels to it too. Like, what I'm noticing, and not to say I'm very far along. The path is long. The path is really, really long. There's plenty of room for everybody along the path. So I'm not very far along the path, but there's sometimes where I meet some really, really enlightened people, and I realize that we're just worlds apart still. We're not doing the same thing, and that's cool too. Like, it's beautiful. What I'm cautioning is that awakening also causes a spike in ego that we have to be careful of as well, because you start feeling like you're exclusive. There is an exclusivity to it. You feel like you know more than the rest, and you have to be careful because you do know a little bit more than the common man, but it's not, it's actually a burden. It's actually ostracized you.
I'm guilty of that. Like 5 years ago, yeah, that was me. I'm awake.
Yeah.
Hey, are you awake? I've been there, man. Oh, my ego. I think it's part of. That is part of the journey and part of the experience of going through this whole remembering process, is actually having, like, attaching to your ego and experiencing that on a very extreme level, and then kind of, for me, it's like the more you learn, and I experienced this so much, and I experience it more now. It's like the more I'm learning, the more I realize I do not know. I do not question things more than I ever did before.
Man, do you realize, like, one time I had this realization, like I was like reading these magical books, and I was like, you know what? Christianity's stupid and all Christians are dumb. I'm reading these magical books now. And then I was like, now how do I do a spell? I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, how do I do this now? So there's it doesn't matter if you go 3 inches, 5 miles, or a light year. There's still light years and light years to go. There's still a huge, long path. And that's why we have life cycles to complete it, because it's not going to be done in a life. You're not going to be able to read every text, and you're not going to be able, like, God, look, I've been trying to read one book and I can't hardly remember. Do you know, astrology alone, I can't figure out how to keep all the planets in line in my head. And like, I was reading one of the books of Solomon, and like, Solomon is like this wisest man in history. This dude knew planetary alignments like in his head, and he could practice, magic on a whim, because he knew which hour of the day, which planet was in rule, which planet was ruling, which angel was in charge of that. And like, he had all these things lined up in his head. I'm thinking to myself, I don't have enough apps to figure all this stuff out, much less be able to do it like he did it. So I'm reading some of this stuff and I'm so overwhelmed. And then that was one of the really one of the things that made me move to spiritual alchemy, because it's too much to keep. If I'm giving up religion and God because I feel oppressed, I definitely don't want to pick up a new set of gods and a new set of rules to be oppressed again. If I'm not ready for that, I'm going to go ahead and do something that fits my lifestyle right now. And right now I enjoy that I'm free, and I enjoy that I'm the master of my reality, and I enjoy that I can transmute today into a better tomorrow, and I don't have to call on an outside force and beg him to do it for me. And I'm not saying that others shouldn't. I'm just saying that I felt very oppressed in the past, and I want a chance to find out what I can do now.
And it's really interesting that we always change as well. Like, my perception has drastically changed in the last couple of days, considering where it was a few weeks ago, a few years ago. And what I've realized is, when you keep an open mind and you allow yourself to change your perception to different angles and to perceive from different angles, you're actually giving yourself greater opportunities and greater platforms to experience things from different angles. Am I making sense what I'm saying? You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. That was what I was referring to earlier when I was saying that if you choose a negative path, you limit your outcomes to that path. You start manifesting that outcome. If you just instead have no expectation. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I'm taking over.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just kind of want to make sure that I'm explaining myself the way that people understand. So I just feel like the more open you are, it's like you have more keys to more of the doors, basically.
Love how you put that.
Absolutely.
No, that's all it is. Like, it's so funny that you said that, because that's one of the things I learned is like it was shit that I heard early in the spirituality. I was like, what you mean it ain't no good and evil? You know what I mean? What you mean this shit ain't got nothing to do with me? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was hard to swallow, because I remember of all people, B.O.B. had tweeted some wild shit one day, and I was like, the fuck is it? What is he talking about? And then I remember I ended up learning a bit more. like 2 or 3 years later, I was like, I know exactly what he was saying there. In the moment, it was a lot though. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking I'm woke as, you know, because I definitely was that fake woke at that time because I hadn't even got out of good and evil and shit like that. But to her point is that is an awesome point because you start at a level of like, I'm open, or you think you open. Then you go from, all right, the Bible ain't real to, oh shit, these spells work. Then you can meditate and astral travel, and you just like, I wonder what else I didn't believe or I thought was fake or was programmed to not believe in that's also real that I was limiting myself on off belief just because I didn't want to hear it or I thought I knew everything. So I love what you said about that. You got to stay open at all points in this journey because there's times you get to a point where it's like aliens, all right, cool, they're real. I mean, it's like, well, you know, Palladians are dolphins.
The idea of aliens. I like
the
idea of aliens.
They say man. Palladians are dolphins. That's why they so damn smart. And I would have been like, that don't make sense. But that's the point. This shit ain't supposed to make sense. This ain't you ain't thinking analytically with your brain. You thinking with your heart and your feelings. And like you said, if you.
I also like the idea that like we have a pressure system. Like there's like several pressures on top of each other. And like being like there's another like I've heard like 12 different Earths and they're all on top of each other and like basic like I like that because I can see how that would work because like a big radio station in this area is 95.7, right? 95.7 is our radio station. That's playing right now in my head, like it's flowing through this area right now. But I don't have a radio that's picking up the signal, but it's flowing through my head right now. And so I know that's real. So it could be possible that there's layer and layer and layer of life, and that's what people pick up. That's deja vu. That's what people see when they see demons or angels or whatever, just beings of different dimensions. I believe that too.
Yeah, across the timeline.
Yeah.
What was that?
Timelines crossing.
Oh shit!
Like you know, someone who thinks they've seen a ghost, and they go, "Oh, it's a ghost," and they say, "Like I saw a ghost," and it's like, "But how do you know you saw a ghost? How do you know it?" They
were just like on the radio station, one click over, so they kind of picked it up, and they were opaque.
Yes, yes.
I see it.
You know what I'm saying? Like that could have been a living person, but like you've crossed timelines, you've crossed frequencies.
Or what about like Interstellar? Have you seen the movie Interstellar where like he was behind reality? What if like you're trying to tell you something like stop, don't go through there. I knock a book over.
I've had them thoughts, you know, like since when you just like little things happen, you're like, is that me? Is that me telling me?
Right.
Exactly, because all he did was go in the fourth or fifth dimension where time don't exist and all timelines are possible. And he literally was going through the bookshelf trying to find out which one she was on at the time so he could warn her. And like you said, I had the same thing after that movie. How often am I trying to warn myself?
Yeah.
So on the other on the other side of a black hole, looking back, is it a white hole?
I mean, I say no. Well, I guess it could be because illumination come out of it. So I see what you're saying. All right.
Does light and darkness? Does darkness?
Yes. Does light comes from darkness?
Does it?
I would think so because if I'm the light and I was born from a womb, I would think I came from the womb.
Yeah.
And if the sun, I don't know. That's a good question because the universe came from God, which I guess would be light, maybe. I don't know.
This is why I say it, because Eddie Griffin said this in a stand-up. And I remember this Jewish guy, he ain't a real Jew, he just studied the Jew religion, was saying, he was trying to argue with me about the speed of light. And I was like, my nigga, like, if a black hole is something light can't escape, you tell me which moves faster. If light is consistently trying to escape it, but it can't because it's a black hole.
That's not speed. That's not speed. That's gravity.
Is the universe consistently expanding though? Is it moving?
It is.
And what exactly is gravity anyway? Gravity is what?
Gravity is the physical manifestation of nothingness. Gravity is what nothing looks like in the physical world. The actual thing, nothing.
I like his definition of gravity. Go ahead and break it down.
Gravity is what makes you age. Gravity is what makes you sag. Gravity is what makes you wrinkle. Gravity is what absorbs everything. Gravity, you don't even age the same in space.
So gravity is what keeps us trapped here.
Gravity is what keeps us trapped here, but it's also what causes us to die. Like, gravity is what makes us physically break down.
Interesting.
But
So
it
there's
makes
a
sense
whole different
because
concept of gravity then to what they try to teach that it is.
A black hole is the actual zero. It is actually nothing. There's a singularity, but that's it. And it is 100% gravity.
and it makes sense because when you activate your chakra, what are you trying to do? Activate the light body so you can, ascend. So like you said, if gravity is what's weighing us down, it makes sense that it would be the black hole, because your objective is to escape the black hole, escape gravity, raise your vibration, raise your frequency, raise your chakra energy.
That's why gravity is so strong in a black hole, because the black hole is literally nothing. It's trying to take everything in because it's so nothing.
So I'm gonna close on a final question.
Okay.
Did you hear what I just said?
Hit me.
I'm gonna close on a final question.
I'm gonna close on an initial question.
Doesn't that sound
Go
fun?
ahead.
I'm gonna close on a final question. Because
Okay.
it's the final question, so obviously we're gonna come to a close, right? Anyway.
Obviously.
Maybe it just because I'm getting really tired. Sorry, it's really late for me, so I'm getting quite tired. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Like, what is your mission? What is your passion? Do you know what your purpose is here?
So that's a great question. I don't know what my purpose is in the grand scheme of the world. I don't know how I fit in the tapestry, but I do believe I'm important. And right now, what I see myself doing, my passion, honestly, I cannot get enough of messing with the strings of reality. Every day, all I want to do is come home and meditate and see what else I can affect. Like, I'm so excited to get home and try to affect my surroundings. I have meditated so much that I've got my children asking about it and my children trying to meditate. My wife has done her research and she has found her own path. She's become a daughter of Oshun. I have made my life, through meditation, have turned my life into something that surrounds me every day with magic. It's magical every day. And I just want to keep that going. I love the way my life is going right now. I love the people that are naturally coming into my world, and the people that are naturally leaving are perfect timing for them to go.
Yeah.
And it's all going very smoothly for me, actually.
That is so good to hear.
Yesterday my car broke down, right? And it could have been very devastating for me, but it's actually turned out where things are going to be just fine. And I'm just living in the magic. I've already got an engine on the way. I'm a mechanic, so I'm going to put it in myself. It all worked out, and I just live my life like that every day.
That is incredible to hear. I really appreciate you sharing so much of your story with us. And your
Glad I could. Absolutely.
Chris, high five. Good co-hosting.
Oh shit!
I stole
I did.
Isa's in there. So I think we should come back and probably do another one. Like, I know that you were saying about language and etymology. I really like that topic. But for now, thank you both.
Absolutely. It was a blast. Thank you. The nervousness is over. We have accomplished.
We have grown.